Hi again. So this video is going to be on simplest radical form. So a radical is in simplest form when the number under the radical sign is the smallest possible integer. So to do that, when we have our third, we look at the value underneath it and we want to find two numbers that multiply to get that number, where one of them is the biggest possible squared number. The reason we do that is so we only have to do the process once. If we find a smaller square number, then we may have to repeat the process multiple times. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. So first of all, with this example, we have to simplify the square root of 28. So we want to find two numbers that will multiply to get 28, where one of them is a squared number. And what we will find is that we can actually have 4 and 7. So 4 is a square number, and we can times that by the square root of 7. 4 times 7 is 28, which will then give us 2 root 7. And we can't find the square root of 7, so it is in simplest radical form. Now, an example where you may find there's more than one would be if you wanted to simplify the square root of 48. Now you see 48, and for me, the first number I think of is 4. Excellent, 4 goes into it. So if we did it that way, we could change this to the square root of 4 and the square root of 12, which will give us 2 root 12. But 12 is a number where we can simplify it again. So for 12, we can simplify it again to the square root of 4 times the square root of 3, which would give us 2 times 2 times the square root of 3, which would give us 4 root 3. Now we had to do that process twice, where if we'd actually seen that 16 went into it, so we could actually work out that 16 is the biggest square number that goes into 48, and the square root of 16 times the square root of 3 would then give us straight away 4 root 3. So it is possible to do it with multiple processes if you can't find the biggest one, but if you can find the biggest one, it's just a lot quicker. So let's have a look at example 2, where we have write 9 minus the square root of 75 over 6 in simplest radical form, a plus b the square root of n, where a and b are elements of Q and n is an element of Z. So remember what that means is that a and b have to be rational numbers and n has to be an integer. Okay, to do this, obviously we want the simplest radical form, so we need to be able to simplify the square root of 75. Now, two ways we can do this. I'll do it both ways. We either put it into our form it wants it in, the a plus b square root of n first, or we'll leave that and do it at the end. So the first time, I'm going to leave it and change it into the form it asks for at the end. So we're starting with this. Now, what I'm going to do first is simplify the square root of 75. And the biggest square number that goes into 75 is 25 times by the square root of 3. And we can simplify it this way. So we're going to end up with 9 minus 5 root 3 over 6. Then we need to put it in this form of a plus b square root of n. So it's understanding in our fractions that we can rewrite this like that. 9 over 6 minus 5 root 3 over 6. 9 over 6 simplifies to 3 over 2. Minus, and then we just pull the 5 over 6 out the front and put the root 3 next to it. And now we have it in that form of a plus b times by the square root of n. Other way we could have done it would have been to split up the fraction first. So actually just done 9 over 6 minus the square root of 75 over 6, which will give us 3 over 2 minus, and then do our simplifying from there. Either way is fine. It's your choice. It's your preference. Pick whichever one you feel most comfortable with. Now, that's all I need to do for this video, and this will link to exercise 4B.